Episode 4. If you have not watched the first, second, and third episode yet, you have missed a lot. I advise you to watch it first to understand the events of the story. You will find all the episodes in the description or in the channel. Let's go. Trying with all his strength to pull me out of the pit. His face was filled with worry, and he was making a tremendous effort to save me. Jack and the other soldiers managed to pull me out of the pit after a strenuous effort. The pain was so intense that I couldn't stand. They placed me on a makeshift stretcher and began to carry me out of the tunnel. I could feel that every step was increasing the bleeding, and I knew that time was against us. When we reached the outside, a medical team was immediately called in. They temporarily stopped the bleeding and began preparing me for transport to the field hospital. As I was on the helicopter, my vision started to fade, and I began to feel cold creeping into my body. The sounds of the engine rose and fell, as if coming from a distant place. I tried to hold on to consciousness, but the pain and exhaustion were overpowering. All I could think about was whether I would survive. When I arrived at the field hospital, the medical teams were ready to receive me. They performed an emergency surgery to save my life. I wasn't conscious during the operation, but I could sense that they were working quickly to save me. I woke up hours after the surgery, feeling as though I had come back from the brink of death. When I fully regained consciousness, I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by medical equipment monitoring my condition. The pain was still there, but it was less severe than I had expected. Jack was sitting beside me, smiling faintly as if to reassure me that everything would be all right. I felt a deep sense of gratitude toward him and the others who had saved my life. The following days were filled with treatment and rest. I spent the time reflecting on what had happened and how I had miraculously survived that trap. But even though my body was slowly recovering, I felt that something inside me had changed. The experience I had been through had left deep scars on my soul, and this was evident from the nightmares that began to haunt me every night. I would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding wildly. The nightmares took me back to that pit, to the moment of the fall and the pain, and the feeling of terror would stay with me even after waking. I knew I needed help, but I didn't want to appear weak in front of my comrades. As the days passed, my mental state began to deteriorate. I could no longer sleep normally, and dark thoughts pursued me everywhere. I was turning into someone else, someone filled with fear and doubts. I couldn't focus on anything, and I began to feel like I was losing control of myself. My comrades noticed this change in my behavior and began to worry about me. Jack tried to talk to me and pull me out of this state, but he didn't know how to help. I felt isolated from everyone, as if I were living in a different world, one filled with darkness and fear. One day, Jack decided to speak to the commander about my condition. The commander was an experienced man who had seen similar cases before. He asked me to meet him in his office and began talking to me about the experience I had gone through. He listened to me attentively and didn't interrupt me once. After I finished speaking, he suggested that I start visiting the psychologist who was stationed at the base. I wasn't enthusiastic about the idea at first, but I realized that I needed help. I began visiting the psychologist regularly. The sessions were difficult at first, as I found it hard to express my feelings and thoughts. But over time, I began to feel some improvement. I was learning how to deal with the nightmares and how to calm myself down when I felt afraid. The psychologist helped me understand that what I had gone through was a traumatic experience, and that it was natural for it to have an impact on my psyche. I began to realize that I wasn't alone in this, and that there were many soldiers who had gone through similar experiences. I felt that I was starting to regain my mental stability. As the psychological treatment continued, I started to feel that I was regaining some control over my life. The nightmares still haunted me from time to time, but they were no longer as intense as they had been in the beginning. I learned techniques to manage anxiety and fear, and I began to be able to live with the painful memories without letting them destroy me. It wasn't easy. There were moments of breakdown, moments when I felt like I was back at square one. But with the support I received from the psychologist and my comrades, who were always by my side, I managed to stand back up again. I began returning to my daily routine and started participating in regular activities at the base. But something inside me had changed forever. A few months into the treatment, the day I had long awaited finally arrived. I was informed that I would be returning home. There was a conflicting feeling inside me. I was eager to go back to my home, to the family I had missed so much, but I also felt a deep fear of what that would mean. I knew I was no longer the same person who had left his country years ago, and I was afraid of what life would be like after returning. The journey back home was filled with reflection. I sat on the plane, looking out the window, watching the clouds drift by. Memories flooded my mind, each scene bringing me back to different moments of the war. I thought about the comrades I had lost, the experiences I had endured, and the challenges I had faced. I was trying to make sense of everything I had been through, searching for a way to reconcile with myself and my past. When I arrived in my country, my family greeted me at the airport. It was a very emotional moment. My mother hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. I could see the joy of my return in her eyes, but I also saw the worry and fear of what memories of the war I might bring with me. I tried to reassure her, to show her that I was okay, but deep down, I knew that I wasn't entirely. After returning home, I began to face new challenges. It was difficult to adjust to civilian life after everything I had been through. I felt like a stranger in my own country, as if I no longer belonged to this world. Loud noises made me anxious, and the daily hustle and bustle made me tense. I tried to live a normal life, but the past haunted me at every turn. I started looking for a job, trying to find something that would help me get back into the routine of life. But every time I tried to focus on something, the thoughts and memories would flood back. I saw the faces of my fallen comrades and heard the explosions and the screams of soldiers. These memories pulled me back, making it difficult to move forward. My mental state began to deteriorate again. The nightmares returned with intensity, and I struggled to sleep. I couldn't bring myself to talk about my feelings with my family, as I didn't want to burden them with my troubles. I felt like I was losing myself all over again, and that everything I had worked to rebuild was beginning to crumble. One night, after a terrible nightmare, I decided that I needed help. I remembered the conversations with the psychiatrist back at the base, and how he had helped me through a difficult phase there. I decided to look for a psychiatrist here and to start therapy again. It was a difficult step, but I knew it was necessary. I began seeing a psychologist who specialized in working with veterans. The sessions were painful at first, as I had to reopen old wounds and face the memories I had tried to bury. But over time, I began to feel gradual improvement. I was learning how to deal with the memories of the war, and how to live with the past without letting it destroy me. The therapy focused on helping me rebuild my life, to find meaning in what I had been through. I was learning that the war was a part of my life, but it wasn't everything. There was life before the war, and there is life after it. I was learning how to reclaim that life and how to find joy in simple things again. I started participating in support groups for veterans. It was comforting to meet people who had gone through similar experiences and to listen to their stories. This helped me feel that I wasn't alone and that there was hope for healing and recovery. We shared experiences and supported each other in our journey toward healing. Over time, I began to find the inner peace I had been searching for. It wasn't complete peace, nor was it constant. There were good days and bad days. But I was learning how to live with these contradictions and how to accept myself as I am, with all my scars and wounds from the past. I was learning that life could be beautiful, even after everything I had been through. I decided to start writing about my experiences in the war. I wrote about the battles I fought, the comrades I lost, and the traps that nearly cost me my life. Writing helped me organize my thoughts and lighten the burden of memories. I wrote for myself, but I also thought about the possibility of publishing what I wrote someday, hoping that my story might help someone else going through a similar experience. I also began volunteering with organizations that help veterans reintegrate into civilian life. I felt that I had something to offer and that I could help others find their way to recovery. This work gave me a sense of purpose and helped me overcome the isolation I had been feeling. It was a long and arduous journey, but I began to feel that I was finding my way in this world again. I wasn't completely healed, and maybe I never would be. But I was learning how to live with my memories and how to turn my war experience into a source of strength rather than a source of weakness. Life isn't always easy, and I still face new challenges every day. But I've become stronger and wiser because of everything I've been through. I knew I would never forget what happened in Vietnam, and I would never forget the comrades I lost. But I was also learning how to move forward, how to live my life with courage, and how to find happiness in simple things. And now, as I write these words, I feel that I've reached a point of inner peace. There is still a long road ahead, and there are still new challenges waiting for me. But I'm no longer afraid of the future as I once was. I've learned that life can be harsh, but it can also be filled with beauty and opportunities. And as I finish this story, I know that I will continue my journey, and I will be ready to face whatever comes my way. Because I've become stronger, braver, and more prepared to face life with all its challenges and difficulties. The end. If you liked the story, support us by subscribing to the channel, and listen to more stories and novels on the North Stories channel.